Every day she faced danger fetching water for her sick mother until a human stranger found her. The twin suns hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the crimson desert as Kael'na adjusted the collection vessel against her chest. Her blue skin rippled with the effort, marked by the characteristic patterns of her Gnostics ancestry, yet there was something different about her, something that set her apart from her tribe. Her pointed ears twitched slightly as she listened to the distant howl of a sand wraith, a predator that hunted these wastelands each evening. She had only 2 hours before darkness fell completely. 2 hours to reach the underground spring, fill her containers, and return home to her mother. It was a journey she made every day, without fail, for the past 6 months since her mother had fallen ill with the fever that ravaged her lungs. The Gnostics healers had done what they could, but the disease lingered, sapping her strength day by day. Only the pure water from the deep spring seemed to ease her mother's pain, keeping her comfortable enough to sleep through the night. Kael'na's bare feet moved silently across the cracked earth, following the familiar path marked by her own footprints. The landscape around her was harsh and unforgiving. Towering rock formations jutted upward like broken teeth, their surfaces glowing orange in the fading sunlight. Cacti and hardy shrubs dotted the terrain, their presence a reminder that life persisted here, even in this desolate place. As she walked, she kept her hand on the knife at her side, knowing that the desert could turn lethal in an instant. The sound came without warning. A low growl echoed across the rocks, and Kael'na froze. Her large blue eyes scanned the shadows between 2 massive stone pillars to her left. Their movement. A rippling of muscle beneath scaled skin. A sand wraith, larger than the ones she'd encountered before, stepped into view. Its multiple eyes fixed upon her, and saliva dripped from its fanged maw. The creature's body was covered in sharp, bristling spines that ran along its spine and down its sides. Kael'na backed away slowly, her hand trembling slightly as she gripped her knife. She knew the weapon was useless against such a beast, but it gave her some small comfort. The wraith took a thunderous step forward, and she began to run, her heart hammering against her ribs. The sound of the creature's pursuit filled her ears. Heavy footfalls, the scrape of claws against stone, that terrible, hungry growl that seemed to echo through her very bones. She was losing ground. Her lungs burned as she sprinted toward the nearest rock formation, hoping to find a narrow crevice where the creature couldn't follow. But her foot caught on an exposed root, and she stumbled, crashing hard against the sand. The wind knocked from her lungs. She struggled to push herself upright, but it was too late. The sand wraith was upon her, its massive shadow blocking out the last rays of sunlight. Then came a sound like thunder from the sky. A figure descended from above, suspended from some kind of aircraft that hovered just beyond the rock face. The stranger was unlike anything Kael'na had ever seen. His skin was pale, almost translucent in the failing light, and his hair was dark and wild. He wore a suit of strange material that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light, and in his hands, he held a weapon that crackled with energy. In a single, fluid motion, he fired, and a beam of brilliant blue energy struck the sand wraith across its shoulder. The creature shrieked in pain and fury, turning its attention away from the fallen Gnostics girl. It reared up on its hind legs, preparing to charge at this new threat, but the stranger fired again, this time aiming for the beast's leg. The wraith stumbled, limped backward, and then seemed to recognize that this prey was more dangerous than the easy target it had found. With a final, frustrated roar, the creature bounded away across the desert, disappearing behind the distant rocks. The pale-skinned stranger landed softly on the sand beside Kael'na, his weapon held loosely at his side. He extended a hand toward her, and for a moment, she could only stare. His features were foreign, his movements graceful, yet completely unfamiliar. She had heard stories of the humans from beyond the stars, but she had never believed them to be real. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his words shaped awkwardly in her language, marked by an accent she didn't recognize. But the meaning was clear. Slowly, Kael'na took his hand and allowed him to help her to her feet. Up close, she could see that his eyes were brown and kind, filled with genuine concern. I am well," she managed to say, brushing the sand from her torn clothes. "You saved my life. I was conducting a survey of this region when I detected the attack," the stranger explained. "My sensors picked up your distress. I'm Dr. Marcus Chen from the Earth Expedition. We've been studying this world for the past few weeks." He paused, studying her with scientific curiosity. "You're Gnostics, aren't you? The natives of this planet. But I've never seen one travel alone in such dangerous terrain before." Kael'na found herself explaining her situation to this strange human, how her mother had taken ill, how the spring water was the only medicine that helped her, how every day she faced these dangers because there was no one else who could make the journey. The words tumbled from her mouth like water from the spring itself, and somehow, this alien stranger seemed genuinely interested in listening. "Show me," Marcus said simply, once she had finished her story. "Show me where the spring is and where you live. Perhaps I can help." For the first time in months, Kael'na felt tears on her cheeks. She wasn't sure if she could trust this strange human, but she was also out of options. Her mother was getting worse, and the journey was becoming harder each day. She nodded and led him to the spring, watching as he used his advanced equipment to fill the containers with efficient speed. As they traveled back to her home, Marcus asked her hundreds of questions about her world, her people, and her mother's illness. By the time they reached the small cave dwelling where Kael'na lived, the first stars were beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. Her mother lay on a woven mat, her breathing shallow and labored. Marcus knelt beside her, producing a small device from his pack. He scanned her with its blue light, made some adjustments, and then injected her arm with a substance from a small vial. Within minutes, her mother's breathing eased, and her eyes opened with more clarity than they had possessed in weeks. "Her fever is breaking," Marcus said softly. "The medication should help her recover fully over the next few days. I'll leave you a supply of it, and I'll return to check on her progress." Kael'na looked at this stranger, this human who had saved her life and then saved her mother's, and realized that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. As she watched her mother smile for the first time in months, she understood that every danger she had faced, every day of struggle, had led her to this moment. The universe, it seemed, had its own way of taking care of those who refused to give up hope. Marcus stayed for another hour, teaching Kael'na how to administer the medication and how to use the communication device he left behind. As the night deepened around them, a new kind of friendship began to blossom, one that would change the course of both their worlds forever.